When I entered the speaking world, I heard and said the thing that breaks my heart the most, which is, well, my story's not that bad. So why would
Mm.
anybody care? Or, but I had a good childhood. So what do I have to talk about?
Mhm.
And what I learned was that for the mass majority of the population, if we're talking about long-term change instead of momentary motivation,
Right.
those stories of people who had a good childhood and still are able to figure out where things got miscoded in their brain that they want to change have much more power than the person who learned to walk again, because we can't
Mhm.
relate to that. So where do we start to separate this idea of taking responsibility for our own personal growth and dealing with the things that we perceived being said or done to us as a child?
Yeah, you're so right. There's so much that gets in the way of good intention, of intended outcome. I often will say, when we look at that first 6 months, that infant who gets responded to or doesn't get responded to, an infant that doesn't get responded to isn't necessarily an infant that's in the middle of emotional neglect household or something.
Yeah.
It's not that their parents are automatically druggies or, mom could have a really bad case of postpartum depression. And that could be all that's the problem. And maybe mom does come and she picks the baby up and she puts the bottle or the breast in the baby's mouth and then just stares off into space and never looks at the baby once. Things like that get coded by an infant's brain very differently than you and I would code them watching it
Yeah.
as an adult, right? And I think coded is a very good word to use for this, because from birth to 3, our brain is literally being wired, it's being built.
Yeah.
When we're born, we have a big skull full of noodles that aren't connected to each other, right? It's a plate of pasta. Nobody's put them together. And so all the inputs to our life after that literally pull those neurons together into the network that becomes the brain.